Well, hello there. This is welcome to Johan Martin from TETE19's visual pod for the English national test kind of thing.
In
We're
English
going to be
5.
in English 5. We're going to be talking about languages today. Our first question is in what situations should informal language be avoided?
So it's obvious that you would use informal language when you are talking to your friends or maybe your family members, as you're close to them and you're with them all the time. But I believe
Yeah.
that we should avoid to use informal language when we are talking to people who are in the space we're in, higher ranked, like in a step above us or multiple in the hierarchy.
Yeah,
For
in a
example,
more social hierarchy then, because yeah.
I wouldn't go up to my teacher and say, "Sup, bro." I would probably say, "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, Mr. Burkhoff," or something of that sort.
Yeah, that's generally what I'd say. If they're higher in some kind of social hierarchy than you, like maybe they're your boss, you shouldn't you should probably avoid informal language, just because it shows that you're well educated, you're well mannered, um, and you have respect towards them as well, which is very important, I think.
Yeah, as in using informal language at someone, for example, if you live in the UK, people can be granted knighthood, and they should be called sir. And if you would go up to them and say, "What's up, man?" it would show a degree of disrespect, and you
Yeah,
are very ill-mannered if you do so.
yeah, and you would.
Also, using formal language uh, would give people a great first impression of you and
Yeah,
show that you are to be respected.
you will inevitably be judged by your peers by the way you speak, uh, probably in a more subconscious way than very like, oh, someone's not going to think like, oh, right, he spoke informally. That's really bad, but they'll get, they'll get a picture of you in their head, which is kind of perhaps not so positive as you want it to be. Uh, so I just say avoid informal language with people who aren't your close friends because it's quite informal language is also kind of it's nice speaking that in a way, it's always speaking informal language would be kind of boring, I think. What do you think, Johan?
Yeah, I think so too. It'd be quite boring, and I believe that informal language is just a tool for people who can't really speak formal language to explain the words they don't understand or
Yeah,
can use.
yeah, no, formal language is much more effective because we have the formal words are usually much shorter, and the sentences are in general quite short because you're just trying to get to the point and tell people what exactly it is that you want to get to them. Uh, there's no, there's not a lot around it.
Yeah, speaking informal language is kind of like beating around the bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, formal language is more concise, gets to the point, and you can deliver your message much more clearly.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of it.
Uh,
So in conclusion, or are we done? Do you think we're done discussing this
yes.
question?
In conclusion, we believe that you shouldn't speak informal language to uh, people you meet for the first time and people who aren't your close friends or family members.
Yeah. All right. So second question. We then have what should you always write grammatically correct? Should it be a priority of yours?
I believe that writing grammatically correct should be a priority for people in all situations,
Mm?
as you don't gain anything from not writing. If you don't gain anything from writing grammatically incorrect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just someone being lazy. And writing
Uh,
grammatically correct sentences in everyday life also prepares you to make less mistakes and better at writing grammatically correct when you have, for example, essays or important work tasks.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to the discussion of informal and formal language, because it's fine if you write grammatically incorrect in some text messages to a close friend or whatever when you're a bit stressed. Um, but if you're doing that with your boss when you're writing him a email, uh, that's gonna be give an impression of you that you perhaps don't want. Like, it's not very. It's
When
just.
you
It's
use
very. Yeah,
grammatically incorrect language, you don't seem very well educated.
exactly. That's what I
And
was.
for example, if you have a job interview, you wouldn't want to go around and use a bunch of contractions all the time, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh, it's and again, it's like it's more effective to write grammatically correct generally.
Yeah,
Than though that's not necessary. Sometimes like contractions can be faster to write, but that's sometimes they can be hard to understand,
yeah, they're a
especially
bit
by people who
confusing
don't.
sometimes.
For people who don't understand, who perhaps don't have English, if we're talking that, if you're writing something in English, if someone is not a mother tongue speaker, that they might have problems understanding if you write with a lot of informal words or grammatically incorrect. So I think it should always be a priority to try and just write grammatically correct.
Yeah. In conclusion, generally speaking, try to write grammatically correct as often as possible. It's okay to slip up when you're writing to your friends, but it should always be something that you have in mind.
All right.
And for
So
our final question is technology improving our language skills or does it pose a threat? Would you want to start?
yeah, I'll start. I would say that it's not. I think it's both. It's both actually, because as a teenager myself who's used technology all my life, I'd say that generally my English is better than most than people who haven't had access to to the technology that I have all their life. But my Swedish is on average also probably worse because English is a language that's it has a heavy focus online on in technology, while Swedish, which is a bit of a smaller language, doesn't have that kind of focus. So it's both. I've gotten better at English, but perhaps worse at Swedish.
Yeah, I'd say that English has a lot huger presence in the technological space than more native languages like Sweden or Denmark, Norway, who are only native to their own country.
Mm,
Technology is a uh, spectrum and way to connect the entire world, and thusly having it in, for example, Swedish would be very ineffective.
yeah.
Translation would be wrong and stuff. And so we learn
Uh,
English a lot there.
Things are in language that everyone can understand easily, and that language has been chosen to be English because, well, I think it's because many people speak it, and because many of the people who have invented technology things from in technology are speak English themselves. So it's just become a natural language. Um,
Yeah, I believe that, say, for example, old people or older people here in Sweden, they wouldn't have the same access to technology. And so instead of their free time playing video games like we do, they would be outside playing with their friends, maybe watching television, listening to the radio, where they would be constantly exposed to Swedish. And
yeah,
thusly, they were obviously become very good at Swedish. But we, teenagers, and us in the newer generations, we spend our free time on the internet, where we are mainly exposed to English. And so we learn that at a higher speed, but our Swedish skills development is faltering or put to a stop.
yeah, exactly. So I would say that maybe it poses a threat to smaller native languages, like for example Swedish. But uh, that's kind of the language in general, like the language skills. I would say, well, I would say technology sometimes promotes a more grammatically incorrect and informal way of speaking and writing. Because when we're online, it's all about being fast. You know, it's supposed to be snappy and fast. So that might just encourage a worse language. Well, that's debatable, but in something that might by many be seen as a worse language, kind of language.
I would say that technology is great for people who don't come from native English speaking countries to learn English or other foreign languages through all the mediums on the internet. But
Yeah,
it also promotes English speaking people to not go outside of the comfort zone and learn other languages, as they don't need to. Everything is in English, no matter where you go.
yeah,
And thusly, I would
that's
say it both poses a threat and improves our language abilities.
yeah. So definitely both. Yeah, uh, yeah. I think that's it about it. As Johan said, it could be more easy to learn languages. That's perhaps a good thing, but it could also pose a threat to smaller languages. All right, I think we're done there.
Yes, thank you for listening to our English 5 visual pod,
Yeah, huge thanks.
and
Hope you
have a
enjoyed
great
it.
day.